Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of TalkFlow. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about 10 freelancer red flags that you should avoid. Um, Welcome back. Me, myself, and Vim are back at it. I told you guys we're going to be consistent. So, yeah. Do you just want to jump straight into it? Vim,
Yeah,
with
sure. I
the
think,
first point?
yeah, I think it is a struggle to find the time for this, but we'll try to
Yeah,
be as consistent as possible.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, just as a quick intro, if you don't mind, Vim, I
Yeah,
want to mention why we're even talking about this. So, for one thing that I've learned, right, is everyone wants to know how you get clients and how you win as a freelancer or as an agency. What I found to kind of work as well is, a lot of people have role models, like they look up to someone, they want to do what somebody else does, right? But not everyone has that. There's one thing that Chris Williamson said that actually really stood out to me was
yeah,
um, you can have the reverse role model where you want to look at people that are not, they're not someone that you want to be, and you look at what they do and you avoid it. So that's another
yeah,
way of getting to where you want to go is by
yeah,
just not by avoiding the bad things. And
yeah,
once you avoid the bad things, you'll be successful. So
yeah.
that's what we want to really talk about. So as long as
And
you avoid these red flags, you will start to have green flags and you will be good.
and also, I think most of the red flags that we are going to mention will sound a bit, oh, isn't that common sense? But you'll be surprised how many freelancers actually don't follow most of this. And it's only something that we realized once we started working with other people. And it's so hard to put a pin on like why you don't like working with certain people whilst you enjoy working with some other people. And it's usually comes down to like this, at least one of these 10 red flags. Again, it's not a huge thing if you have one of this. It's always, you can always learn, but there are people where it's literally like a whole forest of red flags. So just, it's based on all of this is kind of based on our experience as well.
Yeah.
We worked with so many freelancers for the last 2 3 years. I think now I know who I don't want to work with, and there are some red flags where if I see it, I'm not working with them. So
Hmm.
it's my order is almost in the sense of how I want to work with someone, and if the first thing is the red flag that is my top red flag, I'm not working with them,
Yeah.
no matter how good their work is or how cheap they are or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think
Yeah.
you can start with your number one. Do you want to go
Yeah.
in the reverse order? So five, four, three, two, one. So
Sure. Yeah,
people
let's
watch
do
it all
that.
the way to the end.
Yeah, yeah, let's do that. The first red flag for me, at least, is when a freelancer he doesn't have initiative or a lack of initiative. And what I mean by that is someone who does the bare minimum. They wait for kind of explicit instructions for every single task, and it kind of feels like I'm giving prompts to ChatGPT, if that makes sense. Like they can't do anything without me,
Yeah.
um, and it just feels like there's no creativity,
Yeah.
and it prevents the
Yeah.
because for me my main thing is over delivering on every single project. So a lack of initiative kind of prevents me from doing that.
Yeah.
So a great freelancer, what they do is that they anticipate a lot of things, and they take initiative. So they anticipate the client's
Yeah.
needs, they anticipate
Yeah.
your needs, and they suggest improvements based on that.
Yeah.
People who don't do that and they just follow like a robot is not someone that I want to work with personally. And the bad thing about that is quite hard to suss out initially, um, which is why you kind of have to give these telltale signs on a sales call or once you first open a call with a client or freelancer. An
Yeah.
example of this is, for example, you hire a freelancer to build, a website, right? And you outline the basic requirements, but then they fail to make enhancements. Like, for example, they fail to do responsiveness properly, but it's kind of like common sense almost. Like,
Mm.
you know, take initiative, isn't it? Like, I don't
Yeah.
have to tell you,
I think,
oh, do the mobile and then do tablet and all of that stuff, but
yeah.
take an initiative and
I
build
do
it
have like a
yourself is,
really, really good example.
uh-huh.
Like for me, it's always the design space. Whenever I'm looking for designers, you should know, like whenever we work on like design projects or how I used to work, is like I give them so many options. Like if the client comes to work with us or work
Mm-hmm.
with me before, it's like I give them three, four, five different options. So because I can kind of see like, okay, they might not like this one for this reason, so I try something else. So I present to them as many options as I can, so I cover all of my bases. The red flag for like designers is the lack of initiative, meaning you tell them a brief or you send them a reference and they just copy it, or they almost just, they do not explore anything, they do not, it's just what you say is what you get. And sometimes the worst is it just feels like a template, and it's always annoys me because whenever I see the work, I want to see, different options, see your thought
Mm,
process, how did you get to it. And most designers, they almost just give me like one option,
mm,
and I'm just there like, okay, no, this doesn't work, because I know the client will not like it, and I don't
mm,
have alternates to also show as well. So then the best designers are people who just give me, not like a shit ton of options, but like
mm,
just different variety that I can see. Okay, this is why they thought about it. It's almost
mm,
like the other one is like they don't show or record a loom. Like that's an extra step that some designers do to walk you through the design process. Some people, they just send you the Figma file, no message, no
mm.
follow up. It's just a Figma file, and I'm just there like,
Yeah.
what is this?
Yeah, I think it just comes with experience as well, isn't it? So
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
like before, I used to create CMS collections inside of Webflow, and I just used to assume that the client knows how to manage it, even though I kind of created it myself.
yeah,
So, but from experience, what I've learned is whenever I do create a CMS collection now, no matter how simple or complicated it is, I just create a quick loom just to show to the client, oh, this is kind of how you use it just in case. And that
yeah,
is showing initiative. And to
yeah,
be honest, it comes with experience as well. But as long as you have, in your head, oh, I need to take initiative, I need to anticipate what is to come next, that is
yeah,
how you, avoid that red flag essentially.
yeah. Cool. And then my fifth red flag would be freelancers who have frequent scope creeps. So you show them, the work, the brief. They give you, okay, this is the scope. This is what I'm going to charge. This is the timeline. You agree with it and you start working with them. 1 week later, they say, hey, I underscoped it, or this is, beyond what I thought. Now I'm going to increase the timeline or increase the cost. See,
Hmm.
sometimes it's not a huge red flag, but sometimes it puts a little bit of like a strain in the relationship, because again, I'm subcontracting you because I have a client. I've agreed the cost. If you peel back the agency side, there's usually you quote a budget. You sort of quote for this is how much it's going to cost to design, develop, emergency fund in case some shit goes up, and then you account for your profit, right? And then if someone, it's almost on the trust of, okay, this person quoted me this amount, I can make it work within that amount. You get everything going. 2 weeks later they come back and say it's going to cost you a little bit, is okay, I understand. But like some freelancers have quoted me like almost twice the budget, and, they almost say like, oh, because you didn't tell me this, but I did, and it's in the design or it's in the brief. You should tell me what you charge, not what I should tell you, right? Again, it doesn't happen very often, but the moment that happens, you can bet your ass like the client is not going to work with you, or the agency is not going to work with you again, because it's almost like you're sort of deceiving them. You tell them something. Again, there are certain cases where it's completely fair if they keep increasing the scope. That makes sense, right? Like, hey, look, we agreed to 5 pages. Now you're giving me 15. That's a scope
Hmm.
creep. But a website is going to take about 5 pages, but you quote for three, assuming the two is not going to show up or something like that, and then you come and
Hmm.
say, hey, that is two more extra pages that I didn't know, I didn't see, it's going to cost me that
Hmm.
much. That is a red flag.
Yeah, I think that has happened to me before where especially when on hourly rate tasks where I have a
Right.
freelancer who say or I mentioned, oh, how long will
Yeah.
this take? So I was going to take a maximum 5 hours, but then they come back and say, oh, it took 7 hours. And I'm like, I thought we agreed that's going to take five. So it's
Yeah.
just avoiding that, trying to be, open and honest. And I think one lesson that I learned is read the brief and the scope properly. And
Yeah.
the pure reason for that is to avoid this,
Yeah.
so that you avoid undershooting yourself in terms of your pricing
Yeah.
as well.
And if you do, I think personally you should take the responsibility for it. You
Yeah,
shouldn't, unless it's completely bonkers. Like
yeah, yeah.
unless if the client or the agency sort of hide the truth or it's on their fault, that is fine. But if it's your mistake, you underquoted it, you didn't, look through the brief properly, you have to take the blame. I still do. Like sometimes there are projects where
Mm-hmm.
you think it's simple and then you start working on it, you're like, ah shit, okay, I should have charged more for this.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't go and tell the client like, hey, I underquoted it, I'm gonna increase the cost, because that's such a bad sign.
Yeah.
You just gotta accept it. You find other
Yeah.
ways to fix it.
Yeah, that happened to me one time as well, where I took on a project. It was like a migration project as well. So it was
Yeah, same.
a development and it was a migration. I was like, oh, it's
Yeah,
a simple
same.
migration, isn't it?
Same.
But yeah, it was a lot more. It wasn't a simple migration. It was a lot more than we anticipated. But
Yeah,
I affirmed it. I took responsibility. I said, I didn't
yeah,
do my whole research. I stuck with the same price. But then for the next project, because then the client came back with literally the
yeah,
exact same project,
yeah,
but for a different company,
yeah,
and I increased the prices there. And I told them
yeah,
literally like, oh, last time we didn't
yeah,
anticipate this much work for the migration, hence why the prices increased. So I
yeah,
was just honest and straightforward. So I think that's what you should do. Avoid trying to increase prices halfway through the project. That's
yeah,
something that you don't want to do, and it's definitely a big red flag.
yeah,
Um, the next one for me is being unorganized. So what I mean by that is that when a freelancer is unorganized in pretty much everything, for example, they don't have a proper timeline, they fail to provide updates at similar times, and it what that does, right, is that it leads to chaos,
yeah,
right? If there's no structure in place in terms of their process as well. And for example, I've seen a lot of people, right? What they do is that in terms of making updates, they literally just type it up and it's so like messy. There's
yeah,
no kind of harmony behind like their update on what they've done or something like that. Like it's quite messy. So having a structure and being organized in everything, whether that's your process, how you provide feedback, how you provide updates, it means a lot, and it just makes the agency who's hiring you's life a lot easier,
yeah,
because then they
yeah,
can just it's just a lot easier for them to see the progress
yeah,
and therefore hire you again for another project. What you want
yeah,
to do is you want to say to yourself, and this is back to my first point, which is take an initiative, is make your client or your agency's life easier. That's what you should have in mind. And one way of doing that, even though it's small, is just being organized in everything. All of your
yeah,
assets, have them in one place, stuff like that. It just makes working
yeah,
with you a lot more fun and easy and simple.
yeah.
Yeah, it will just lead you
I
to
mean,
to yeah.
I kind of used to be that, like, this organized freelancer, because like if you're freelancing, it's almost like this sort of systems and processes didn't make sense for me. Like I was just like, oh, it doesn't matter as long as I get the work done.
Mm.
And so
But
whenever
then
there
with
was,
experience, you learned, isn't it, that that's not the
it's
case.
experience, but also being in the agency's point of view now, I
Mm.
see, okay, this is why they made me use Monday.com, or they make me use Slack, or they make me use all these project management tools. I used to
Mm.
hate them so much because it's almost like I didn't have a process, so it didn't fit into my process, so I had to follow their process, right? And it's almost like, just I'll get it done. Don't worry. Like I'll get it done. But I don't need a process. But then
Yeah.
if you look at from an agency point of view, you're not the only person. For the freelancer, they might be the only person they're working with. So it's easy for them to keep track of everything in their mind. But for an agency, they probably have 10, 20 projects going on. You are one of like 50 people that they're dealing with.
Hmm.
They need they need to know where you are at, what you're working on, just so that they can update themselves or the client. That's the mindset. So now what I do is, whenever we bring anyone in, we have a rough process. We tell them that's the process that they need to follow. Unless they have a better process or they have a way of working, we trust them, we let them do it. But we tell them why there's a process. That way, it's a lot of agencies fail to tell me that. Like they just almost tell you just do it, but they don't tell
Hmm.
you the why. But now when we tell them like, hey, you follow this because unless you have a process, this process helps us to keep track, blah 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 blah. They kind of understand and they follow it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, I think that kind of goes into as well, which is why it's very important for agencies as well to have a process in place to avoid this
yeah,
happening. One thing I realize is that every single person has a different way of working. It's not going to be the same as yours. So
yeah,
you have to have a way to standardize all of that and systemize it to work for pretty much everyone's needs. And how you
yeah,
do that is building a process in place that allows freelancers to just jump on, and allow them to, easily stay on track. And it just avoids chaos.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that you don't want, chaos. So
Yeah.
as a freelancer, try to remember to be organized, work with the agency that you're getting hired by's process,
Yeah.
and yeah, make their life a bit easier.
Nice. So was that your point or was that my
That was
point?
that was my point.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So my point,
Being
I think.
organized.
So my next point I would say is the inability to take feedback. Again, this is rare, but I you can catch it quite easily. When freelancers get defensive about feedback, or they ignore it, or they because I've had some freelancers last time that it's almost like they when you tell or the client gives them feedback, they make a joke out of it. Sometimes it's fine, it's all banter, but if you get defensive about it, saying like, this is the only design, they're being stupid, or this doesn't work. It's okay to push back a little bit, but to the point where someone is afraid to give you feedback because they don't want to deal with you, that's a huge red flag. Again, it's not a
Mm.
huge one. I don't think a lot of successful freelancers know how to take feedback. When you're starting out, it does feel a bit personal. I used to feel that when someone gave me feedback, it's almost like they hate me. But then over time, you realize it's not you; it's just the work. Sometimes I still feel it when I see some clients leave some feedback for the freelancers that I'm working with. I almost take it. Some inside, it just feels like, oh wait, why did they say that? That feels
So,
personal.
feels a bit offensive. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels a bit offensive. But then I have to
Mm.
like, no, it's not you.
Yeah.
It's not the other person. It's just the work. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah,
think that's one thing I learned as well is detaching yourself from your work
yeah,
and not letting because I understand, right? We're all, trying to, we're all in this business because we love it. And as a result, we have a lot of pride towards our
yeah,
work. So
yeah.
when somebody kind of criticizes it, it kind of hurts our ego. But
Yeah,
one thing I learned is to detach yourself from your work. Your work is your work,
yeah,
and kind of have fun with it. Like now at the end of the workday with my employees, we kind of laugh sometimes about when a client said that he didn't like this. This is a bit of fun, but we don't take it
yeah,
personally. That's one thing you should do is never take criticism personally.
yeah,
Look at it as a positive thing, where you can tell yourself, "Oh, this person doesn't like the way I done this. Let me try to improve." That's
yeah,
one thing that I done. I remember when I first built Pristine Digital's portfolio website. I thought it was a banging design, but then I remember I sent it to a Discord channel, and I thought everyone's gonna like clap for me. Bro, I got roasted so bad. And then I was like, what? I thought I was so good. But then if it wasn't for that, right? If it wasn't for me getting roasted and criticized,
yeah,
I would not have improved my design skills and become the designer that I am today.
yeah,
So take criticism positively instead of
yeah.
negatively, and don't take it personal.
Or if you can't, it's just accept it as part of work. It's just
Yeah.
another
It's
process.
a part of
Because for
life.
me,
Yeah.
yeah, because for me, is I really remember when I gave like markup links to clients to leave feedback. I absolutely hated that part because when you open the site and you see like 100, 200 comments,
Oh,
it just feels so personal sometimes.
yeah.
And then sometimes clients go like, don't like this, remove this, this is
Yeah.
bad, um, weird
Yeah, like we,
choice
we,
of
we all know
design.
that meme, isn't it? Just make the logo a bit bigger.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
oh,
yeah, it happens, but you know what?
annoys me.
Some clients do this give stupid feedback, like
Yeah,
make the
yeah,
logo a bit bigger and make this
yeah,
icon a bit bigger. But you just gotta be professional with it and tell them, "Look, listen, like
yeah,
I'm the expert. I don't
yeah.
think this will work."
Push
And that
back, but
can't,
then
yeah,
if they're still like insisting on it,
adamant
yeah,
about it, then you just gotta
yeah,
accept it. Yeah,
just gotta accept it. It's almost
yeah.
like because when you for me again, it changed my perspective when I work with someone and let's say they're redesigning my website or making some graphic or some lottery
Mm,
or whatever. When I'm giving feedback, I am the client and I have the tendency to be like, don't like this is bad. It's
mm,
not personal, right? So it's just purely the work. I love that person, but maybe that work was not up to my standards or their standards. So it's like once you do that, then you realize, okay, so this is what the client feels when they're saying all of this.
yeah,
It's not like they hate me. They just they want to try different versions. It's just
yeah. It's just
another part of work.
Yeah, it just is like none of us knew this like before we actually started to hire people, which
Yeah,
is kind of why you guys should trust us because we used to be exactly like you. Like,
Yeah.
but then once we started hiring, we understood both sides of the spectrum.
Everything falls into place, which is why
Everything
now
fell into place.
when I give feedback, it's like, okay, what you tell the good things, but you also tell the bad things, and I just put a disclaimer. It's not you. It's just the work. Sometimes
Yeah,
you just gotta let them know upfront, because once you do
yeah,
that, every other feedback they know. Okay, it's not personal. You
yeah,
got to tell them, like, if you like the work, you like the work, and then what are the things that you don't like.
yeah, exactly. My next point on the next freelancer red flag that you should avoid, and for me, this is a big one, is when you don't, or when the freelancer doesn't meet their promises. And what I
Hmm.
mean by that is when someone is, um, sorry, one second. When someone misses, for example, they're inconsistent with their deadlines. I've had this so many times where
Yeah.
somebody says, "Oh, I'll send you a progress update by by the end of the day," and they don't, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that really annoys me because then it
Yeah.
makes me think, it plants a seed in my head where it's like, if
Did
they
they do
don't meet
it?
this promise,
Yeah.
they're probably not going to meet my next
Yeah.
promise. Or then
Yeah.
once they make another promise, like, oh yeah, we'll meet the deadline, we'll launch before the deadline. It makes me think, oh, like this person probably won't because that
Yeah.
they didn't meet their other promise. So
Yeah.
it not only wastes time, but it damages your reputation so much that even if the client is like, oh, even if you have like a genuine excuse, and the client is like, for example, let's say you're ill, right? And then you mention that to the client and the client understands, like it damages your reputation a lot more than what you think. And I know that because it's happened to me. I've made the mistake,
Yeah.
and I've not met my promises to clients, and I've had freelancers not meet their promises to me. So I
Yeah.
understand both sides of the spectrum. And one thing I can tell you is I damage you, it damages your reputation a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so now what I would say is whenever you do make a promise, make sure that you can meet that promise. If you can provide a progress update by the end of the day, make sure that you do it by the end of the day. Don't forget to do it. Do it, right. Even little things like a progress update, even if you send it the next day in the morning, the fact that you didn't say what you said you're going to do,
Yeah.
it just damages your reputation a lot.
Yeah.
So that is a one massive red flag that I would say to completely avoid. So
Yeah.
meet your promises. That's what I would say.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I still struggle with it sometimes.
Yeah.
But one thing that helped me is, again, just be upfront. If you can't do it, just say you can't do it. Also goes back to your previous point of being disorganized. This usually happens when you have no system, you have no plans. You just go, just whack it on that day. So when you have a system, or okay, this agency or this client, I've told them every Monday I'm going to give them an update, or every Friday I'm going to send them a loom. If you say it, write it down and actually follow it, because if you break promises, again, sometimes you have to, maybe the client pushed it back, or they are delaying it, or maybe it's not realistic timeline. Sometimes I see that's okay. But if it's purely from your point, like you said you're going to update me on Monday and you failed to do that, then it's just going to annoy people, because they are actually just sitting there. They might be just waiting for you to give an update before they check in or whatever.
Hmm.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
think
Yeah. It's a massive red flag for me. One of the biggest ones. Um, yeah, that's something that you should definitely avoid.
this was your
It
number three, right?
Number three, yeah, it would just
Yeah.
make people, not want to hire you. It will
Yeah.
make you seem like you're not trustworthy. Like, and the worst thing that can happen to a freelancer is making a client not trust you in
Yeah.
your word. Like, if you,
Yeah.
for example, like if you keep on doing this, not meeting your promises, eventually what's
Yeah.
going to happen is whatever you say is not going to mean anything.
Yeah.
If you say, oh, I can do this project for you, they will not trust you because you
Yeah.
never met your
They
promises
won't
before.
come
So why are you
back.
going to meet? Yeah, they will never come
Yeah.
back. So avoid that. And your reputation, it takes a lifetime to build, but it can take 1 second to destroy, like
Yeah.
literally. So try whatever promise it is, no matter how small or big, meet it all the time. That's what
Yeah.
I would say. Yeah.
I think my number three point would be freelancers who lack the detail, like attention to detail
Mm,
is missing. Again, this is very hard to scope out for, because sometimes the work that's in their portfolio is perfect, and it's like you don't know how many revisions they went through and stuff like that, right? So it might look really good, but then when you come to work with them, you realize like, okay, you have to tell them like, hey, use SVGs instead of PNGs. Can you compress the image? Can you, make, use a proper style guide and not
Mm,
just whack something up yourself? Like this sort of attention to detail makes it even worse if you are charging quite a lot, which is what I realized. Some freelancers, they charge quite a lot, so you assume, okay, I have to do less of this sort of management or QA. I can trust them to deal with even the basic things, and then when they deliver the site, you see inconsistencies or mistakes where it's almost like, wait, how did you not catch this before you send this to me? And then you have to spend your time to go through all of it. It just makes it so annoying to work with that person. And like, I understand if they're new and whatever. Again, I've been there. Typos, all of that, I've done it. I don't blame anyone for like typos and small mistakes. That's completely fine. But like, if it's so consistent, like if you open up your markup and you see like 300-400 comments, yeah, then you have
mm,
some issues because you're not doing proper QA yourself.
mm, mm. Yeah, I think that's something that I do or something that I look for whenever I hire a freelancer. So whenever I hire a freelancer, I always ask for their Webflow read-only link to all of the
Hmm.
projects that they sent
Hmm.
me, and I just take a couple minutes just to check their development of their work.
Yeah.
And the main thing I look for is the attention to detail.
Yeah.
Anyone can make a crazy, good-looking website with beautiful animations, but for me, it's more so the little things like, did you compress all your images? Did you name every single class correctly? Did you the way that you done the animation, is it the most efficient way possible? Did you use SVGs instead of PNGs? Little things like that.
Yeah.
It just shows to me that they have good attention to detail.
Yeah.
And for me, the benefit that that has for me is that I don't have to go if I do hire them, I don't have to go in and check every little thing
Yeah.
before signing off or approving the project.
Yeah.
So having good attention to detail is such an underrated skill. Is what a lot of agencies and people like myself and Vim are looking for
Yeah.
in freelancers. So if you want
Yeah.
to stand out, pay attention to detail, the smallest things. And this kind of comes back to anticipating the client's needs and taking initiative.
Yeah.
For example, you know, uh, uh, with PNGs, right? It's so easy to just add in whatever PNGs without compressing, doing that extra little step because it pushes the project over the deadline, over the
Yeah.
finish line rather. But if you're the person that anticipates the client's needs, you'll think to yourself, oh, you know, I want to make the page speed a bit faster. Yes, if I just add all of the PNGs now, it'll push the project over the finish line, but I want to anticipate further into the future, which is, I don't want the website to be slow. So let me compress all the PNGs, let me name this properly, whatever, whatever. So having good attention to detail is super important and is one thing that I actively look for whenever I hire a freelancer. And I'm sure that every single client also does as well.
Nice. We are the top two.
Top two. Is it my one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So for me, my top two is, and this kind of falls into the sales side of things when I'm hopping on a call with a freelancer trying to hire them. And it also more so as a reminder for myself as well, is if you're too eager or too pushy. And a freelancer who's overly eager and overly pushy, it seems so desperate. The thing
Yeah.
is, right, one thing that I realized, Vim, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in America, right, in the US, a lot of people, they kind of the way that they do sales is that they're quite eager with it. Like they say
Mm.
follow up every day, follow up every 3 days. But in Europe, like we don't really do
Yeah.
that. Like we don't want it
No.
because it seems very desperate and it seems like
Yeah.
you're kind of begging it almost. So that's something
It's
that you don't want to do.
Yeah, essentially, that's a good point because now I think about it, right? A lot of those videos we watch, they're all
Yeah.
US based and they're
They're
like,
all US
oh,
based, yeah.
give them a call and,
Give them, yeah,
email
like
them
it,
every day, make sure
yeah.
you follow up. But like if you do that in Europe or at least in the UK, people will immediately not want to
Yeah.
work with you. Because I had
Yeah.
one freelancer, he emailed me. I was like, okay, I give him the brief and I was just waiting from my end to get all the stuff that I need. And then this guy, the next day, he called me. He was like, "Hey, I'm just calling you about the proposal." I'm just like, "Don't
Yeah,
call
no,
me,
no,
man!"
no
Like,
one does
because
that.
yeah, because I'm like actually in the middle of something, and you give me a call, and I'm answering. You're just checking in the proposal. That's the immediately I'm not going to hire you.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a very valid point. I didn't
Yeah,
think of that until you
maybe it
said.
works. That's something, I realized this, like all of these videos, right? Where all of these sales tricks. I think I love Alex Hormozy, right? And I think
Yeah,
he does crazy good he's a very good salesman. But in terms of like following up every day and calling,
yeah.
like don't do that.
No,
Like,
it works. It
um,
works in like mass. Like if you do that for like
yeah,
1,000 people, at least
yeah,
10 people are gonna bite. But if you only
yeah,
have 5 leads or like five
yeah.
clients,
Don't be
don't do
eager.
it.
Like, don't do
Don't
it.
don't don't
Like,
overdo it.
maybe if you're in LA or New York, maybe it'll
I
work.
don't know. It's
But
almost like rethink the way, because if they are not replying to you, again, follow up is fine, but there needs to be a reasonable schedule. If
yeah,
you're
bro,
doing
like,
it every day,
yeah,
people
it's
have
a
like 10 emails, 100 emails coming through. They're not, if you email them every day, it's almost like spam. I
yeah.
immediately block people who come
Yeah,
back to me
yeah.
like every single day.
I think in the US is pretty normal for people to do that, which is why
Yeah,
when it does happen to them, they don't think anything of it. But
yeah,
over here, it's not like that at all. That's one thing that I did realize is don't be eager and
yeah,
pushy. Like if you send a proposal or you hop on a strategy call and you're
yeah,
going through the proposal and you're waiting for a response, don't just call the client or don't just email them straight away. Like, oh, when are we gonna get started?
yeah, yeah.
Take your
It's
time
just
and be
chill.
reasonable with it. Even
Yeah,
if you are desperate, even if you really need that project, don't come across like it.
yeah,
Like don't be eager.
yeah.
Just take a
Just
chill
chill.
pill,
If they
relax.
like you, if they like
If
your
they
work, they
like
will
you,
come back to you.
they'll
If
hire you.
not, it's not the end
Exactly.
of the world. Like,
Yeah,
chill.
yeah. A lot of times as well on sales calls, like I can just tell when a person, like whenever I open a call with a freelance, sometimes I can tell that they've watched so many sales videos and it sounds so salesy and
Yeah,
scripty. Like they
yeah,
say, for example, when I say, "Oh, I need to think about it," they say, um, "Oh, I understand that you want to think about it." My question to you is, what is stopping you? I'm like, bro, like no one speaks like that. So
yeah,
even
yeah,
stuff like that, don't come across eager. Like just have a normal conversation. Treat them like they're a normal human.
yeah.
Don't
Because
treat them like they're a
it's so funny
number
when
in
you
your
said
sales
it,
sheet.
because I
Yeah.
was on a call with like another agency, right? Like for some other services, and he's like, "So Wim, based on what I told you, what do you think? Like, where are you at? Like, do you think you're
Mm.
gonna be working with me?" I'm just like, "Dude, just chill. Like, I will get back to you after I look through it." It's like
Yeah.
you just put a person on that spot. It just feels so fake. It's like this.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's like a script somewhere. He's just reading it through. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. So
oh my
yeah,
god.
don't read off a script. You have to be authentic.
Yeah.
That goes a long way. So to kind of wrap up my point is yeah, don't be eager. And this not only comes down to sales, but it's also like other stuff as well. For example, being eager about, finishing off the project or
Yeah.
getting feedback on your work or stuff like that. Just take a chill pill, like, you know,
Yeah.
be timely with it, be authentic with it. Don't read off a script. Yeah, just be authentic and real, like you're talking to a real human being. Um, and yeah, just be professional and don't be pushy. It just makes you look super desperate, and coming across desperate is just not something that you want to do if you want to get clients and make some money. So yeah, don't be eager, don't be pushy.
Nice. My second biggest red flag would be when freelancers are inconsistent in availability. Like
Hmm.
it took me so long to figure out what this point, like why some, like I like working with some people and some people I don't. It's so recently, right? Like the last year or so, when working with like freelancers, they're on the call. They're like, "Oh yeah, I'm working most weekdays, and I'll give you an update every
Mm.
morning. This is my working zone, my time zone, and stuff like that." And then when you start working with them, it's almost like they it's so hard to reach them. You have to like tag them on like messages. You wait like 8 hours before they reply back. It just makes it so hard to work.
Hmm.
It just disrupt, because again, from an agency point of view, we have like multiple projects running.
Hmm.
I need to almost need the developer to tell me, or like the designer to tell me, like, "Hey, this is what I've done today, or like this week. This is my plan for next week," so I can better manage. schedules, and also with the client, right? Sometimes clients just DM me asking like, "Hey, what's the update?" And I need to let them know. And like, if your availability is so inconsistent, like I'm struggling to reach to you, or like you say you work on weekends, it was weekdays, and then suddenly like you just stop replying one like every
Mm-hmm.
Monday, or like you're not available, and you're not jumping on calls with me that we've already pre-booked stuff, and then you come back with like saying, "Oh, sorry, I had another call, I had another project, or
Mm-hmm.
I was out," like stuff like that. I know life happens, which is okay, but if it's so consistent, like you're just hard to reach out to, I can bet you're not getting the next project. The
Yeah.
moment you have that bad seed in their mind, there's no way they're working with you again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it comes down to reliability and being a
Yeah,
professional.
that's the
Um,
one. Yeah,
the thing is that I want someone who's reliable, not only in
yeah,
their work, but also
yeah,
their availability.
yeah,
Um, the thing is, right, is that you have to be a professional, and a professional shows up even
yeah,
if they don't want to. Like,
yeah,
for me, one thing that I've learned in my career is, you know, like just have certain hours where you're available and ready to work, and then after
yeah,
those hours, don't even think about work. Like
yeah,
before, I used to treat this kind of like as my life, but now I just treat it like a profession. From 9 to 5, I just show up, and then after 5, I'm away. You know,
yeah.
so just be reliable in everything, including your
Reliable.
availability.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
make
I
up
think
excuses
yeah,
saying I got this appointment, even though it could be true. Just
it
try
could
your
be
best to
true.
be reliable and available.
Yeah, it's like your appointment didn't come yesterday. Unless again, is if it's like a medical emergency, like sure. But like if you
Hmm.
have one medical emergency every other week, then yeah, that's some issue. And like
Yeah.
you have to be honest with that person, right? Because if you suddenly, you could have some issues of whatever it is,
Hmm.
you have to tell them because now they need to find someone else in case you're not available. It's
Yeah.
just that I see freelancers, they take on like so many projects and they still have, they take you on, and then it's almost like they're struggling to juggle everything.
Hmm.
That for as an agency, I'm just like, I could have just said no. I could have found
Mm.
someone else to do it. But you're trying to like
Hmm.
manage all of this, and you're so inconsistent. It just ruins the working relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just be a professional, be reliable with your time, and it'll just make working with you that much easier. And that's what we're looking for. That's what clients are looking for, and that's what will get you more clients.
Yeah,
So, yeah, my next point, this
your
is my
top.
final one,
Yeah,
um, and I think this is a big one. I kind of found it a bit difficult to word, but what I would say is being over reliant on guidance. And what that is, for example, there's actually a recent story where I hired someone to do, it wasn't like anything Webflow related, it was like something like business growth related. And yeah, I hired them, and it felt like, even though they were the expert, it felt like I was constantly holding their hand or hand holding them.
mm,
And for example, like they always ask me, "Oh, what do you think?" I mean, I understand getting the client involved in the project is good, but
yeah.
sometimes I want someone to just,
Just do it.
have their expertise and be like,
Yeah, you tell
this
me,
is,
man.
yeah, like this is what I think we should do.
Yeah,
This is what has proven to get me the most results, and yeah, let's do this
yeah,
and whatever. Like, instead of me going in and be like, how about if we do this? And then they say, "Oh yeah, you know what? That's a good idea." I'm thinking like, you should have had that idea. You're the
yeah.
professional, you
I'm
know.
paying you to think.
I'm
Like
paying
I
you
have
to
no
think
time
like
for
that.
this. Yeah.
Why am I the one who's literally just telling you what to do?
Yeah,
Like,
there's a
and
fine line. Like it's
yeah,
very
yeah,
hard.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's quite hard to balance it. Yeah, you're
yeah,
correct. But it's more so just being the expert. And this not only, and this is actually one thing that I learned from hiring people. And I've adapted that into my own, business when, we're trying to get hired, is that now what I do is I take the stance and I don't overly rely on the client's guidance. Yes, in some cases, especially with design, you kind of have to understand the client's directions, right? But for the majority of the time, we're the experts and we give our expert opinion, and that's it. For
yeah.
example, if a client wants something that we think is not right from a design perspective, we say that straight away. And
Mm,
you might think here that, oh, you're not pleasing the client by saying no, but sometimes saying no is actually a good thing. Like, it makes you seem more professional and more of an expert, and it makes you seem more confident. And what happens is that they start to rely on your expertise, and what this does is that it makes you seem more professional. So yeah, what I would say is, you know, yeah, don't be reliant on, the client's guidance, and it just shows like a lack of ownership. It shows that you're not a
Yeah.
professional. So try to avoid that as much as possible. Matter of fact, do the opposite. Own your work, own your opinion, and just stand on what you say. But at the same time, like Vim said, there's a fine line between standing on what you say and asking the client for their feedback. So you got to learn to balance that, and that kind of comes with experience. But one thing I will not do is be overly reliant on the client's guidance.
Yeah. That just annoys me. It's like a pet peeve, but also a huge red flag.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
my final one is, this one will immediately stop working with that person, is if if they're slow, unclear, or vague in communication. Um,
yeah,
this is like, if you do this, be guaranteed you're like, no one's gonna work with you. They'll work
yeah,
with you on one project, but they're not gonna come again.
yeah.
Um, it's like freelancers who are very slow to reply. Again, you could be the best, you could have the best design, you could build the most complex Webflow sites, whatever it is. But if you do not reply a message, or your answers are so incomplete, or you just disappear for like 3 days and then you come back with the full website, I don't want that. Because
Mm,
again, as I said, as a freelancer or as a client, they need to be updated regularly, because they have other people to report to. If it's a client, if it's a marketing person or something, their boss will ask them, hey, what's the website progress? And like, if they can't get to you, they cannot tell their boss what's going on, right? But
mm,
then 3 days later you come back with the website. They'll be happy the website's there, but they'll be also be annoyed that, why are you not replying me,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And this always happens. And the moment like it happens once or twice, I'm already like thinking, okay, I'm not working with this person anymore. What else can I do?
yeah.
If they are slow, or if they are,
Mm-hmm,
the worst is slow and they ghost you for like a couple of days sometimes, and you're just sitting
mm-hmm,
there like, are you doing the work? Or it's, and then they come back and they might have done the work and it might be perfect, but you put the person in that edge of like, shit, what if they are, they're sick or whatever, what do I do with the client now? I need to find backups, and that stress will, the next time they're not going to work with you. And one thing that I realized is like, everyone that I still work with, they are really good at communication. Even if, let's say, there something comes up, like their dog is dead or whatever the
mm-hmm,
reason might be, right? They tell you upfront, like, hey, I'm not working tomorrow because so and so
mm-hmm,
happened. That's fine, because now I can, if it's important, I can find someone else to deal with it.
mm-hmm.
Or if not, yeah, sure, just don't worry about it. But then
Yeah,
if you disappear and then you come back and say, hey, my dog died yesterday, I'm like, as cruel as it sounds, I'm just like, I don't care. Like, you could have told me that first, because now it's just like, you just made me worried for other things, right? So
yeah,
it's like, you gotta understand the other person's point of view. It's not like they're
yeah,
micromanaging or whatever. They have other things that they need to do,
yeah,
that it
yeah,
might rely on you replying them.
yeah. I think one thing as well for me is, let's say I ask a freelancer, oh, let's try to get this done. Like I give them a task, a general Webflow development task, right? And then they reply on the Slack thread, done, and that's it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, bro, like it's a big task. For example,
Yeah.
like let's say it was like a importing, actually
Yeah.
that's quite like let's say it's building a CMS collection, right?
Yeah.
You know, and then I'll ask them to do it, and they just reply done. Like, bro,
Mhm.
give me some further comments, like, oh, it went smooth. I came across this problem. Like,
Yeah.
surely it's just not done, is it? So
Yeah.
that's one thing I would say is, even in your message, don't just say done, or
Yeah.
yeah, it's done, or okay.
Vague. Too
Like, be
vague.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's too vague. Like, even when
You
you get
know,
asked a question, don't just say
yeah.
yes, or like
You know what's the worst?
expand a bit. Yeah.
When they just go hi and
Yeah,
nothing else.
yeah.
It's just hey, and you're just there like, are you gonna say something, or do you want
Yeah,
me to
yeah.
say? Again, it sounds rude, but it's like the worst. It's like the waste of people's time, right?
Yeah.
And this unclear, vague, or slow communication also goes for clients as well,
Yeah, it
because
does.
there
It
are some
does.
clients where they just say like, um, on the feedback part, they're like, oh, this doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
It just pisses me off because it's so vague. What part of it doesn't feel like? Is it the
Yeah.
color? Is it the design? Or like clients that completely, again, all of these points, you could literally turn it into 10 red flags for clients
for
as well,
clients as well.
everything will make sense. So it's less about you as a freelancer, but more of a person. You could be a client or it could be a freelancer. All of these points will literally, it's not professional. I think that's the point you put across. If you want to be professional, you should do your best to avoid all of this.
Yeah. I think that kind of wraps it up. To summarize my 5 points really quickly, is number one, it is, where is it? To over rely on guidance. So lack
Yeah.
of ownership, don't do that. Number two is being too eager or too pushy. Avoid doing that. You just seem desperate. Number three is not meeting your promises. If you're the kind of person who consistently misses deadlines and fails to meet on agreed upon stuff, it just ruins your reputation and you end up being a liability. Number four is being unorganized. That just leads to chaos and it makes whoever's hiring you's life that much harder. Five is having a lack of initiative and, or a lack of anticipating further needs or future needs. For example, just doing the bare minimum and just waiting for instructions like a robot or, like your chat GPT, it just prevents, from the project exceeding expectations, which is what everyone is looking for. So those are my 5 things kind of wrapped up.
Yeah, my 5 things would be unclear, vague, slow communication. Um, Again, try to be as quick as you can. Make sure you're in detail, as much detail as possible, and try your best never to ghost someone for more than like 24 hours, unless it's an absolute emergency. But even if it is, try to tell them, like, hey, I might not be able to communicate because I'm on a flight or I'm on the road or something like that. So they're not just waiting there, waiting for you to reply. The second one would be the inconsistency of availability. It's sort of tied to point one, is that if you cannot tell the person why you're not available, like that makes it a lot more difficult. Be honest, be upfront, be clear on your when you'll be replying, when you won't be replying. So this makes things easier for everyone to plan. The third would be the lack of attention to detail. If you want to be a high paid freelancer, if you want to make a lot of money, you've got to make sure you do a lot of QA, make sure your work is as great as possible. Because if you could make it easier to work with you, they will want to work with you no matter how much you charge them. The fourth point would be the inability to take feedback. Again, feedback is not personal, it's just work, it's part of the job. Try to take it sportively and push back if necessary, but if they insist, there's no reason, like you shouldn't take it to your head. And finally is scope creep. um, if it's if it's a huge scope creep in from the client point of view, that's fine. But if you underscope a project or if you realize you missed something and then you go back and say, hey, I forgot something, I'm going to charge you more, that is an immediate red flag, because people have budgets planned and it's a verbal agreement, or sometimes it's a contractual agreement that you signed it. Going back and changing it does not put you in a good spot, and and ultimately it will not lead you to your success.
Yeah. So yeah, those are 10 client red flags that you should avoid. Just to reiterate, the reason why we're telling you guys this, first, is more of a reminder for ourselves, honestly. This was productive for myself, but it's also avoiding the bad things will just make you automatically good. So try to avoid these and just do the opposite of them and use this as kind of like a reverse role model. Imagine all of these 10 points as a person. You just imagine this person in your head, the worst freelancer known to mankind, and they have all of these 10 red flags. Just avoid that person. Avoid being anything like that person, and you'll just be good. And we get this question all the time: is how do I get clients? How do I make money? How do I make 10K a month? As long as you avoid these things, I promise you will get there. So yeah, that's what we'll say. That's wrapped up. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this episode. If you have, please leave a like and comment down below. Make sure you subscribe as well and turn on the notifications so you don't miss out on any future episodes. And we'll see you next week. Bye bye.